Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and sorry if I sound a little more out of breath than normal, and yes, it actually is out of breath right now, not my normal sinus issue that you guys are used to hearing. But I just got done training, and it was a pretty brutal session with some PRs, so I'm pretty tired. And something that I wanted to talk about, because I get a lot of questions from guys who are at an intermediate level, and girls too, but I give more standard numbers for men at the intermediate level. And a lot of the guys, I've told them things like, yeah, once you become an intermediate, if you want to get a lot stronger, something like Mad Cows, which is Bill Starr's 5x5, which is really only 1x5, because you ramp to a 1-rep set. It's a great way to get a lot bigger and stronger relatively quickly, and throw in the right accessory work for your weak points. Very effective system. But the problem that comes up is that it is relatively low volume. You're ramping to one heavy set 3 times a week for each basic function. And yeah, I know that's not quite how it works in the program, but those of you running it know. And the problem intermediates run into is that what happens when after they do reset after reset, they can't add weight to the bar, because obviously progressive overload, the whole idea is to add more weight to the bar for whatever you're working with. But you're going to reach a point eventually to where when you get to 410 pounds for 5 reps on the squat, eventually it stalls and you can't add weight to the bar. When you start adding weight, the reps go down, and before long, you can't even do 1 rep with it. You've passed your 1 rep max. And you're definitely not going to grow off of just doing a 1 rep max either. So the question becomes, what can you do to get around that? And something that gets overlooked by a lot of strength athletes is increasing work capacity to get stronger. Because the thing you have to remember is that increasing work capacity by being able to do more sets with a sub-maximum weight, one, it trains those motor patterns better because you're getting more heavy reps in, and particularly more first reps on a set, because your first rep is really the one that's going to ingrain your 1 rep max strength and that motor pattern. So by doing that first rep more often, because you're never going to have 2 reps that are perfectly identical in a set, you're training the motor patterns better. But the higher workload, the higher volume, the higher time under tension will induce more hypertrophy. And hypertrophy will always make you stronger. If the same muscle gets bigger, it is capable of generating more force. That is proven across the board. So, that being said, how would someone go about doing this? Well, once you're well into the intermediate level, you can start messing with auto-regulation and the RPE scale, which is rate of perceived exertion, and start increasing work capacity. If you can no longer ramp to a heavy set and continue to progress, start adding sets. Start with something like 80%, because 80 to 85% is really kind of that sweet spot for strength training, because it gives you a good balance of motor unit learning, but enough total workload and tension time to really get a lot bigger also at the same time. It's a really good area to work with, and it's relatively safe in terms of connective tissue and joints. You're not going to tear stuff as easy by just beating over and over and over in that intensity range. So start with something like 80%. And most people can do 3x3. Most powerlifters can do 3 sets of 3 relatively easy, maybe RPE 8 or 9 with 80% of their max. Build up to 4 sets, and instead of just focusing on lifting the weight, focus on exploding with the weight as fast as possible, recruiting as many motor units as possible, as much power as you can get out of it. Build to 4 sets of 3, 5 sets of 3, 6 sets of 3, and when you can get to 7 or 8 sets of 3, and don't increase until they get easy. If you're still in RPE 9 or 10 on the last set, don't increase, work with it until it gets easier. And when it gets easier and you can do 7, maybe 8 sets, and you can explode that 3rd rep on there, it's time to add weight to the bar again. You have gotten stronger, and there's no doubt about it, because your earlier sets will get easier and easier and easier as the work capacity increases. Well, if doing a 3 rep set with the same weight feels a lot lighter and faster with the same weight, after doing something like this for a number of weeks and months, then obviously you've gotten stronger. Your 1 rep max has gone up. Add weight, you can start the system over again. Put 5 pounds, 5 kilos, whatever on there. Start the cycle over again. And that's also good for someone who's, say, stalled at 5 reps at 410 pounds. We'll work with 400 to 410 with that 3x3 and ramp up the volume. And when you can get to 7 sets of 3, 8 sets of 3 with that weight, I promise you, your 5 rep max has gone up as well as your 1 rep max. It's a very, very good system to do this. And I'm not saying that's all you have to do. You could run a system straight like this through the week. You could run a concurrent or undulating system like this every week. Something like almost based off of the Westside type templates where you would use this as your speed work, because for a raw lifter working with 80 to 85% for high volumes of triples and exploding with it is the raw lifter's equivalent of what the equipped lifter does for speed work. And it will give you the benefit you're looking for. Is that their type of speed work doesn't always carry over, but this will give you the same principle. Using a sub-maximum weight that is heavy enough to recruit maximum motor units for high volumes with relatively short breaks. So it will increase your overall work capacity, which in turn will increase your strength. So this is the type of thing that you have to start doing when you start stalling up as an intermediate. When you start stalling with stuff like 4 plates aside for 5 reps on the squat, this is when you start implementing systems like this, where you start working with more volume and working back and forth between building up to max sets or working with volume. And again, you could even use the type of concurrent type templates that are out there to where you have one day on the squat where you build up to a 3 rep max or a 5 rep max. And then the other day to where you do this volumistic approach and you try to just increase work capacity. And you could train them concurrently, or you could run it straight through as even 3 times a week of squatting that way 3 times a week, whatever you want to do. There's different methods of doing it. Find what works for you at any given period of time. But just throwing ideas out there for you guys to show you that there is more than one way to progressively overload, even as an athlete who trains for maximum strength and power. Alright guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go.